You asked for a weekend show. You've got one. Maybe you'll get two.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, hold on. Please don't crash again, computer. Hey, do I have a lower third? Where's my lower third? There it is. You can call me Sully. Where'd it go? There it is. Thank you. I'm an Emmy-nominated television producer who's been a baseball podcaster for the last decade or so. I've been in the last 5 seasons here at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And be sure to like and subscribe and do all those fun things if you're following me on the YouTubes. Little adjustment there. What else can I tell you? Okay. Yeah, it is the Labor Day weekend, and I'm going to be doing shows. Maybe I'll try to do a show every day. I'm not 100% sure. You can't stop me. But I'm going to be talking a little bit about, we're in the middle of what is the grand finale of the regular season, and there's a bunch of storylines to cover. If you want to talk about the present, Ronald Acuna Jr. and the Braves made a statement going into the Los Angeles Dodgers home. If you want to talk about the future, well, guess what? The Martian has landed with the New York Yankees, and we have learned that hope is better than despair. And even though the Yankees, they're on they've won a series against Detroit. They won the first game against the Houston Astros. It's not like they're not gonna win piddly poo this year, but it already feels different if you're a Yankee fan. The last few days feels different, and we're going to get into that. And we're also going to get into a little bit of the Texas Fold'em. The Texas Rangers were in a situation where the idea of a 100-win season wasn't out of the question. And now they're hanging on by their fingernails to hold on to even a single playoff spot. But first things first, let's go down the 5 from where I'm sitting right now in the luxurious Locked On MLB studios. And we're going to talk a little bit about if this is going to be what the National League Championship Series would look like if it's a Los Angeles versus Atlanta series. It looks like it's to be great fun baseball, but as it stands right now, Atlanta's been making all of the great statements. Game 1 was basically an MVP showdown with Acuna Jr. hitting a grand slam, getting on base a couple times. Then Mookie Betts hit a pair of home runs, and it turned into a 1-run thriller. Today's game kind of followed a similar path. The Braves ran up a big, huge lead. Ronald Acuna Jr. homered. Then the Dodgers rallied to make it a game, but the Braves held on. Now, it never got to the point where it was a 1-run game, but Atlanta wound up winning the game 6-3. And there's a bunch of things that look really, really good if you're an Atlanta Braves fan. First of all, look at whether or not Atlanta sweeps the series or they win 3 out of 4, or they wind up splitting the series. We'll have forgotten this, but if they meet up in the National League Championship Series, because October is different than September. That being said, it's been a very good showing for the top players in Atlanta to be able to come into the Dodgers home and play the way they did. Max Fried pitched 7 innings. He did not let up a run against the Dodgers. He walked 2 batters. He let up 3 hits. He struck out 10. Sorry, Jeff Cohen, everyone who wants me to put a Met and who owns baseball every single day. No, this is Max Fried's day, and it was also Acuna's day. He homered. I think he homered. I think he doubled. No, he homered, singled, and yeah, he homered, doubled, and walked, and stole another base. He's a fantasy baseball sensation right now. And with that, the the Braves have made it so they went into Dodger Stadium, and if worst case scenario happens and they get no hit on Saturday and Sunday, they split. They've already done what you'd want to do. If you got a 4-game series on the road against one of the elite teams in baseball, your to-do list is split it. Done. Check it off. And the Dodgers, they're going to win the division. We all know they're going to win the division. They got a 13.5 game lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks and San Francisco Giants. There's no way those teams are going to make up 2 weeks worth of games in a month. Just like Atlanta, we know they're up 15 games on Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, as of this recording, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Arizona are all playoff teams right now. So these are teams that have significant, gigantic leads over teams that are good. And yet Atlanta is the one who has made the statement. Atlanta is the one who has said, hey, we're not intimidated by you. We're not intimidated by your pitchers. We're not intimidated by your stars. None of that. And tomorrow, Elder, who has pitched pretty well recently, is going up against TBD. I don't know. Could be me. Could be you. And in fact, if you want to be the starting pitcher for the LA Dodgers tomorrow, do hashtag let me pitch and send it to at Sully Baseball on Twitter or Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter. So let me we'll create a banner there. But yes, have that be let me pitch. A hashtag. It'll be a hashtag let me pitch. Here we go. There you go. Add the banner. Hashtag let me pitch. And we'll see if we can get you into the game. And you'll probably just be an opener. But, we got to know now. We got to get you. You got to fly you in. I'll pick you up at the Burbank Airport. We'll drive you over to Chavez Ravine. Game starts at 6:10, and maybe you too. But you got to send it to me at Sully Baseball. The Atlanta Braves are the elite team right now. Now, of course, a lot of this can change, and we're seeing there's a lot of movement in the sort of the Tetris that is the playoffs, and the two absolute can't stop them front runners in terms of who would win the pennant in the National League are the Dodgers and the Braves, and this is quite a showing. And when the MVP votes start to tally, look at Acuna could go on a massive slump. Freddie Freeman could go on a massive roll, as could Mookie Betts. But if it comes down to, where it's like a razor thin comparison between the three players, the memory of Acuna coming into Dodger Stadium and blowing the doors off the dump has to mean something. Now, I'm recording this. It's around 11:30 on Friday night that I'm recording this. I tried to look. I didn't get any information. I'll see if I can find anything. Peralta and Wong pinch hit for Betts and Freeman. Now, was Dave Roberts giving him a day off? I don't know. Colton Wong in his first at bat as a member of the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers picked him up, I guess, to be a utility infielder. Wong hit a 3-run homer, which was basically all the Dodgers offense today. Wong is someone who has had a terrible season with Seattle this year, but has postseason experience. He has a walk-off home run in the postseason. He's a member of the Cardinals, and he was also picked off first base to end a World Series game, also with the Cardinals. So that's quite a delta of postseason heroics that Colton Wong has. Obviously, they're just he's a pinch hitter. He seems to have done the job well. I hope there's nothing wrong with Betts, and I hope there's nothing wrong with Freeman because I want to see them play well. Hey, we're going to go a quick break, but before we do that, I am going to talk about the trivia The trivia question I had on the other day, we had Justin Latta on from Locked on Guardians. The Cleveland Indians, that's what they were called then, won 3 pennants during the wild card era, and they're each time the ALCS MVP was a newly acquired player. Which one was acquired in mid-season? And a couple of you got it right. I will go. DB Collins got it right. Court Stell got it right, and someone else got it right on here. Well, I may have to just those two absolutely saw got it right. Um, the answer was Andrew Miller. Andrew Miller, who dominated the Toronto Blue Jays in the ALCS out of the bullpen, got the ALCS MVP. And if you're keeping score at home, the other two ALCS MVPs, easy for you to say, who won for the Cleveland Indians in '95, it was Oral Hershiser, who played for Los Angeles the year before, and in '97 was Marquise Grissom, who played for Atlanta the year before. So that was your trivia question. We are going to have a trivia question at the end of this one. So I hope you're a Saturday listener, and I hope that you are an everyday Sully. If you're an everyday Sully, just put a little hashtag everyday Sully, and there you go. But we are going to talk a little bit about the Yankees, and for the first time in a while, I'm going to be positive about them. I want to just bring up either Sunday or Monday or maybe tomorrow. I don't know. It depends on how cheeky I'm feeling. I've received a ton of responses from Angel fans over the last few days. Some have agreed with what I'm saying, but I've gotten a lot of flack from Angel fans. And I get it. It's not a fun time to be an Angel fan right now, and some of them are getting pretty defensive. Um, and I'm going to address some of the comments that I got. I got to say something right out of the gate right now before getting a little bit into the Yankees, which is I don't hate the Angels. I want to see the Angels in the postseason. I wanted to see Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani in the postseason. And they're not ever going to appear in the postseason together, at least not as Angels, because there's a better chance that I'm with the Angels next year than Shohei Ohtani. So either on Sunday or Monday or whenever I get around to it, maybe tomorrow, I'm going to address a bunch of the messages that I got from irate Angel fans, and I'm going to try my best to answer them as best I could. Hey, I've been hearing for a couple of years about Jasson Dominguez. First of all, he spells his name incorrectly. He spells it Jasson. That's that's not how you spell Jason. Yeah, and I kind of I don't know. I bristle at things like that. It's like when the movie Monsters Inc. came out, and there's the big furry monster named Sully. In fact, his last name was Sullivan. And when everybody, especially since I became a teacher, when they found out my nickname was Sully, they said, "Oh, like Monsters Inc." You know, they spelled Sully in Monsters Inc. They spelled Sulley. I know 10 million Sullivans. They're all nicknamed Sully. Nobody spells it Sulley. Look at right there. Right there. If you're watching on the YouTubes, that's how you do it. Sulley. Some uniformity. I'm sorry. Jasson Dominguez. It's like when remember Jay Happ, who used to pitch for Toronto and the Philadelphia Phillies? It was J period A period Hap, and he wanted to be called J Hap. There's a very easy way to be called J Hap. Spell your name Jay Hap, because J.A. Hap, that's who you are. All right, I digress. I've been hearing about Jasson Dominguez for the last bunch of years, and there have been times in the past that, like Montero, there is sometimes Yankee prospects are inflated in terms of their value and how good they'll be. But I've been hearing about Jasson Dominguez for a few years as if he was going to be a big star coming up through their system. And the Yankees obviously have had a nightmare season. And They have cut bait. I think they have to shut down Aaron Judge because he's not 100%. Why not just start the rehab right now? But they've been calling all the kids up. Now, some people, I know Stacy Gotsulias from Locked On Yankees, and other Yankee fans I know have said, why didn't they call up their kids up earlier? Sort of go by the Cincinnati Red model, which is to say, hey, let's just put all of our best talent on the field and see where it takes us. The Yankees didn't do that. And now that they see that the season is a lost cause, they're treating the rest of the year like it is extended spring training. And you have Everson Pereira, Ben Rortfeld, Oswald Peraza, Oswaldo Cabrera is back up. And now you have Jasson Dominguez. And you have all these players who are young. And look what's happened. They're already more energetic. They're already more interesting. And Jasson Dominguez, who has been, this is the big player in their system. They've brought him up. He goes into Houston up against future Hall of Famer Justin Verlander, and he homers in his first at bat. And the Yankees wind up winning the game in Houston with freaking what's his with oh God, why am I blanking on his name? I keep wanting to say Bartolo Colon, but it's not Bartolo Colon because we would all know that. Why am I blanking on his name? Oh, Rodon. Oh, Jesus. Sorry, it's kind of late. And by the way, Severino has pitched well recently too. Severino has in the past been a very talented pitcher, and he went on a stretch where like, oh my God, should they DFA him? No, he's pitching better now. And now they have some young players on the team. If I've said this before and I'll say it again, a baseball team's main thing it owes its fans is entertainment during the summer. Now, clearly the best way to be entertaining during the summer is to be a contender, to have your present be very good. But if your present can't be good, and not every team is going to be good, not every team is going to finish 81 and 81. There's going to be some disparity. So if you're not going to put a winner on the field, you at least have to give your fan base a sense that you're onto something. We're building towards something. We're not going to win it this year, but show up, get to know the players. You can get attached to them because we're working towards something with this team. And sometimes it clicks, and sometimes it clicks ahead of schedule. Like what happened with Baltimore last year. We're down the stretch. All of a sudden, the young kids start playing with it. Oh, that was the plan, wasn't it? Now, if you can't give them a present, you can't give them a future, then you got to give them a past. That's when you have nights where you say, hey, here's the greatest player we've had. Let's have a reunion of this championship. The Yankees have kind of overkilled that over the years, which is why all these young kids are coming up and they're wearing number 89 and 73 because they've been retiring every single number. I mean, retire your legends, but did they really need to retire Jorge Posada's number or Paul O'Neill's number? I have nothing against celebrating the past, but these young kids are like, all right, this year wearing number 88. Yeah, but when I become established, I'll get one of the lower numbers, right? Nope, no lower numbers to be had. Here you go. You are 88. But I digress. The Yankees suddenly have a reason for fans to go to the game. They were the worst kind of losing record team when they fell below 500 and went on that 9-game losing streak. Because they were bad, they were losing, and they weren't young. If you're going to lose young. If you're going to lose, don't lose with veteran players because there's no hope in that. The Yankees are not going to the postseason. I know that. You know that. I don't care what rally they're going to go on. They're not going to catch the Texas Rangers. And I'll get to that in segment 3. But at least there's a reason to go there and go like, okay, let's get to know these guys. Because, look, I've been very quick to trash Brian Cashman on this show. I have. I thought he inherited a team that was terrific and pushed the right buttons, to be sure. But then when it came to his building a team on his own, it's fallen apart. But I will give Cashman credit that when the core was disassembled in the mid 2010s, they put together a new team that got to within one win against a cheating Astros team of the World Series with an almost entirely different team in 2017, and did so without tanking and did so without a losing record in between. So I do give Brian Cashman credit for doing a good job then. Please, people who think I have an irrational hatred to Brian Cashman, note that I have complimented his abilities there. I still don't think he's the right person to move forward putting together the team. But once again, I digress. This is a big challenge for him. Can he do with this squad what he did with the 2017 squad, which was rebuild on the fly and put together a contender? Because remember, that team had a bunch of young, exciting players on them. Led by Aaron Judge, who had one of the great rookie campaigns anyone had ever seen. But remember, they also had Gary Sanchez was on the team, and Gary Sanchez was an exciting young player on that team. They had Severino was a young, exciting. This was on the 2017 Yankees team that got to as I said, got to Game 7 of the League Championship Series. Had the single greatest highlight of any recent Yankee team, which was upsetting Cleveland, because Cleveland was the best, pretty much the best team in baseball, one of the best teams in baseball, certainly. But they had, Gregorius had a good year. They had Gary Sanchez was a young, exciting player. Greg Bird was a young, exciting player. There was hope for Ronald was Teroy. I forget pronounce some of these players' names that were on here, but they were a team that had a bunch of good young players on the squad. And remember, they also had Masahiro Tanaka, who was a very good pitcher on that team. They had a good squad, and there was a sense of hope for not just a quick fix, kind of like the 2013 Red Sox, but like a long-term project. Well, it didn't work out that way. And so now we're going to see the young players step in and maybe do well. And if you're a Yankee fan, and I'm not, it's got to be more interesting now to go to the stadium and get to know these young players. Go to the stadium and say, hey, look, it may not happen this year, but stick around. And maybe taking a look at the Reds model, because the Reds, who are, still contending, got that way because they brought up as many young players as they could and got a full year out of them. It may have helped the Yankees to bring some of these kids up earlier, but they didn't. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. The present right now for the Yankees is they're probably going to finish just, they are playing better. They're probably going to have like a nice little burst of a win streak here, and will probably finish like 80 and 82. They're not a 90 loss team, but they're probably not going to be able to get completely above 500 with a couple of weeks left to go. But for the fans going there, it's like, okay, yeah, we're not that good this year. But do you know what? Next year, things are going to look pretty good. And that is more exciting. Granted, the best case scenario for a Yankee fan is they win the championship and Canyon Heroes and all that. But I guarantee you, Yankee fans would rather go to the stadium and see a young face that you think, oh, maybe, rather than go, oh, God, are we really retiring Luis Sojo's number? The Texas Rangers, going around let's just go around the league for a little bit. The Marlins are still hanging on. They're above 500 now. They won an extra inning game against the Nats. The Mariners got their toe stubbed by Senga and the Mets. The Mets doubled them up 2-1. The Guardians came back from behind, scored 2 in the 7th inning to beat Tampa Bay 3-2, but they couldn't gain any ground on Minnesota because they beat the Rangers 5-1. We'll get to that in a second. Red Sox got clobbered by the Royals in a meaningless game. The only other games that had playoff implication, boy, Bohm, the third baseman of the Phillies, my heart breaks for him. He made a critical error, and he just looked devastated. His error led directly to 3 runs being scored in the bottom of the 8th as the Brewers wound up beating the Phillies 7-5. The Blue Jays bats came alive in Colorado in a 13-9 game as the Blue Jays are still hanging around. Again, we'll get to that in just a second. And the D-backs, with the Giants losing to San Diego and the D-backs doubling up Baltimore 4-2, the D-backs are now tied with San Francisco for one of the wild card spots in September. And let me tell you something. On Tuesday, if you wake up on Tuesday and your team is either in a playoff spot or only one game out, then the general manager can take a big bow and say, I gave you a summer. I gave you a summer of fun. And I got you to past Labor Day with a team in contention. And that's really all you can hope for. By the way, we'll talk about the Angels tomorrow. They got absolutely manhandled by the Oakland Athletics with a final of 6-2. The Reds split a game with the Cubs. So let's talk a little bit about the fact the Blue Jays won big and the Rangers lost 5-1 at home to Minnesota. And it was not a good showing. Not a good showing. They got a homer from Corey Seager, but that's about it. Polanco got the big home run for Minnesota. 5-1 was the final. And there's a disturbing thing going on. Let's just go back. I mean, less than a month ago, just 2 weeks ago, the Texas Rangers were one of 4 teams, one of 4 teams in all of Major League Baseball that were playing 600 or better ball. Tampa no longer was doing that. Houston wasn't doing that. The only teams that were playing, if you woke up on the morning of the 15th of August, which was just 2 damn weeks ago, the number of teams playing 600 ball, which would average out to roughly 97 wins, 97, 98 wins for the year, were Baltimore, Texas, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. The 4 best teams in baseball at that point. The Rangers had images of not only winning the division, but having home field advantage throughout the American League playoffs. And with that, Bruce Bochy would just be taking bow after bow after bow and saying, congratulations, I'm now in the Hall of Fame. Now, since then, I talked about the teams that the Rangers could be mentioned with, like Baltimore, LA, and the Braves. Well, in the 2 weeks since then, the Rangers have won 3 out of the next 14 games. That's the same number of games that the Royals have won. It's the same number of games that the Rockies have won. They are matched with the lowest win total in baseball since then. And while they're only, they were aided by the fact that both the Astros lost to the Yankees and the Mariners lost to the Oakland A's. This would have been an ideal time. The A's picked up ground on every single AL West team. The Rangers are still only 1 game out of first place. It will take a mild winning streak by Texas and a mild losing streak by Seattle and Houston, and the Rangers will still be in first place. But that being said, as of right now, they're only a game and a half ahead of Toronto. And they've been falling like a rock. Did I mention they're 3-11 in their last 2 weeks? Did I mention that their bullpen has been blowing big lead after big lead? By a coincidence, Aroldis Chapman is their closer. And the Rangers, who have been in a playoff, have had a lead as big as 4.5. They were 4.5 games up over Houston midway through July. They were playing 600 ball just 2 weeks ago. And now there is a very real possibility that the Toronto Blue Jays could catch them. If you don't believe me, if they lose tomorrow, Toronto wins, half a game will separate the two. Only 1 in the loss column. So Texas has to get their act together and get their act together fast. Do you know why? We're in September. We are in the stretch run. The time for waiting is over. You know, when you look at the reason why I don't look at the standings in April, at the sort of the end of April, it's because there's not enough games have gone by to have any sort of a sample size. Well, that's the small sample size that the Rangers have to start winning in. This has to be just a hiccup, because if it's not, then this could be a good old fashioned Texas fold'em. The Rangers have been in a playoff spot every single day since Memorial Day. They have a perfect summer score. Follow Sully Baseball on Twitter to find out what the summer score is. But if they don't make it, if they let the Blue Jays pass them, look at the Rangers have an incredibly underrated, tortured franchise. But I was really looking forward to the idea of an ALCS between Baltimore and Texas. Two teams that have not been in the World Series for the last few decades. Well, it's been, Texas has been in, okay, no, Texas was in a decade ago. Fine. It's been over a decade for Texas, and it's been a long time. But it's also for Baltimore. But Texas is also one of those franchises that have never won the World Series. And I know a bunch of Ranger fans, and if my team can't win, then I want to see a generational moment. And I very well could be a Rangers championship, which they were just a Nelson Cruz leap away from, and then was a Lance Berkman bloop hit in the center field away from in 2011. But now forget the World Series. You got to hang on to that third wild card spot, because that's where they are right now, clinging to the third wild card spot. Tampa and Houston are ahead of them right now. They are not guaranteed piddly poo. And so they have to get that winning going. So, anyway, here's been our Saturday edition of Locked On MLB. Let's do a trivia question for you. And here it is. I happen to be a big fan of stolen bases. I'm glad stolen bases are back. When was the last time the player who led the league in the American League and the player who led the league in the National League in stolen bases met up in the World Series, that both pennant winners had the respective stolen base leader on their team? When was the last World Series that had a clash of the stolen base kings? That is your trivia question. So send the answers to Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, Locked On MLB on Twitter, Locked On MLB Podcast on Instagram, or down here in the YouTube comments. Talking about the past, talking about the present, talking about the folding potential situation in Texas. This has been a weekend edition of Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. And that's how you spell Sully.